how are you doing? How's the game feeling? How's life? How's the balance?
I'm doing pretty well. I work a ton,
Mm-hmm.
so I pretty much play casually. I
Mm-hmm.
don't fret about things too much. I don't like go super hard on the events I don't want to go on. Like I didn't do Misty Island at all, just because I'm like, I don't want to dedicate the time to it.
Mm-hmm.
The legacy item thing doesn't bother me too terribly much. Kind
Okay.
of just more in that like slow and steady progression.
Sure thing.
I kind of come back to this game over time as opposed to like I played WoW a bunch in the past and some other things, but this game suits like how I want to play well
Mm-hmm.
with work, since like there'll be weeks that I don't play at all, weeks that I play a bunch, months that I don't play a lot, months that I play a bunch, but the constant progression is always kind of there. So it always
Mm-hmm.
feels kind of good to log in, do some stuff. If I don't play, I don't play. If I do play, I'll make some gains and then just move forward from there.
How does that square with or just how do you see that with like symbols and stuff in progress that's so time gated?
Yeah, so like I sat at 255 for a long time. Just, worked on other things, and then
Mm-hmm.
eventually I'm like, okay, like leveling past 260 or 255 is not as challenging as it used to be. It's not as big of a time sink as it used to be. I should probably start pushing to, 270, and now that Odium's out, 275 just to do that. It's
Mm-hmm.
free gains.
Yeah.
Um, Free. I mean, it's time
Yeah,
gated,
yeah,
but
nothing is free, but I get
I
what you
can
mean.
put in
Yeah.
the hours for it. Um, but a little bit different position at work now, so I got a little bit more time. And
Mm-hmm.
over the last few months, I probably average about a level every 20 days, 25 days
Mm-hmm.
over the last little bit. So I feel good about that. I'll be 266 probably in the next week or so.
Mm-hmm.
Dailies help. Dailies are a decent chunk of EXP now when you talk about
Yep.
Perdium, Cernium, and like Moonbridge
Yep.
Plus.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, they really
so
try
yeah,
to make people still feel like that sense of moving forward in the game, even if they don't have like those chunks of their day to grind out, right?
right. And I'd say probably 6 out of 7 days a week now, I gain about 5, 6%.
Mm-hmm.
So, if I get a level a month, I'll reach 270 or 275 eventually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's bound to happen, or the game shuts down, whichever happens first, you know.
Whichever happens first, yeah, and then we'll just find somebody else to play.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So have you set your sights on other things other than just leveling up? Is that more? Is it just to, gain access to new areas, or is there other ambitions that you have? What do you? I guess what I'm asking is, what do you kind of use as a gradient to see that you're still progressing?
Yeah, for sure. For the longest time, I was like, I'll just get to a level I'm comfortable with, play, have some fun. But now I'm like, okay, Liberation is probably not too far off. I probably have the damage, or at least close to it at this point to do it. It's just about gaining levels, so might as well get up to, 273, 275 range and go ahead and
Mm-hmm.
join a party for it. The hardest part for me will just be making time to commit to it. That's difficult with work currently.
Mm-hmm. You mean to
But
the practicing or just to the levels itself?
no, just to like committing to the party, making
Sure.
sure
Yeah.
that I can
Mm-hmm.
actually, show up at the same time each week, because that's an important part of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Practice
So,
runs together. Yeah.
right,
Because
right.
even if everyone shows
I'll
up
get
at the same time and everyone puts in the work, there's still going to be people who learn at different paces and stuff. So it's
right,
also, yeah, it's got to match. It's good to look for people who like match in that vibe where you're like, I'm actually kind of busy, but I also do really want to do it. But then if you have a whole party like that, it can be tricky to get everyone in the same room at the same time, kind of vibe.
exactly,
That can be difficult. Yeah.
exactly. So I figure like I'll get the levels probably, I'd say in the next 6 months or so. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'll get there on the levels, and I think I'll have the damage for it as well. It'll just be about like, can I make the time personally to commit to the party
Mm-hmm.
so that I can be there for the runs and things that you have to do.
Mm-hmm. Have
I think
you?
I'll be able to. So.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing could be like if you find a bunch of other people who feel like committed in that same level, maybe that could give you a little bit of a boost as well to like, all right, I feel good about this party. Like, I feel good about these people and the commitment, so I'm gonna put in the extra effort to do it. Sometimes you need a little bit of a, you know, what we call a stick
Right,
behind the door to like,
right.
something to yeah, as an extra
Yeah.
motivator.
Yeah, it's also one of those tough things, like, why I quit raiding in a while and stuff like that. Like,
Mhm.
took a job that's a little bit more demanding, got married, and now it's one of those things where it's like tried to convince the wife that like, oh, I've got a commitment on the game this night versus like, hey, I
Mhm.
want to go out to dinner with friends. It's one of those things where like I eventually got to the point where I'm always going to choose like, oh, I'll just go out to dinner with friends if they want to.
Yeah.
Um, and end up blowing off raid, which ends up not like being fair to the WoW guild and whatnot. And so like I just want to make sure I'm in a space where it's like, okay, cool. If we're going to commit to running these bosses on this day of the week at this time, like gotta actually make time to do it, even if it's just for like a 7-month period or however long liberation goes. Is it a little more than 7 months?
It's 8 total runs. So I mean, if you start if you start running in a month and you'll be able to clear just before the end of the month, and technically you could clear like the first of the 8th month. So then it'll be like 7 months and 3 days or something, right? Technically, but anywhere from like 7 to almost just over 7 to just under 9 months if you don't miss out on any clears, of course. Hopefully you gradually get better and the runs get easier and people get stronger and better mechanically, and it should get better and better. But there's always class balance that changes as well, so certain classes might run into different issues since it is such a long time period. I'm hoping that New Age brings to the table some kind of speed up mechanic for it, maybe allowing you to like run every 2 weeks or something, or like twice a month. So that would still make it a 4-month time, which I think is still plenty to feel impactful, but also because they're bringing in more pieces of the Eternal set, and the weapon is also part of the Eternal set. It feels like if you want people to have that set bonus and move through the game faster, I feel like it's like the will HP bar blocks and that I feel like are the two most like time gating things at this point. They're already showing progress with symbols, right? They're making the things weekly for arcane symbols, right? So that's going to speed up tremendously on mules and stuff to get them locked in. And with sacreds in Savior, they're adding a lot of extra symbols. So 5 extra for Cernium and 5 extra for Hotel, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it basically means that you're getting 50% faster for Cernium, and then doubling the speed for Hotel. So that's already a huge gain. And that shows that they're trying to push people, to be able to do Saren faster, to be able to do Kalos faster, to have any kind of sacred power that you can use against Kaling, right? And then Kaling also shows that they're releasing that as normal mode, so they probably have planned like Chaos or Hard mode for that at some point. So, and there's New Age coming. But to circle back a little bit to what you said with, as overarching stuff that you're looking at Liberation, have you, just like an idea, because we do have the boss rooms in the Discord, right? Have you ever posted in there like, hey, starting New Age, I would like to start like a Black Mage party. I'm 265 now, but I'm willing to put in the time. Is anyone else in the same situation and would like to do that? Because I imagine there's a lot of people like you who they're kind of getting at that level. They kind of would like to, but they might feel like they know they're not good enough right now, or they might not have the hands and they need like a safe environment to practice and stuff like that. Because if there is a party like that would like to get started and would like to get coached on that and stuff, I'm more than willing to like be a part of that. But I would need like someone else to make like the move and set the stuff up. I can be like the one who leads all of that, because then it all like lands in my lap, and I feel like I already have juggling too many balls, as we say over here.
Yeah, you're in a lot of parties already.
Yeah, a lot of parties and guild
Mage,
stuff and stream stuff and all the behind the scenes stream stuff, and then my own business doing this stuff, and like it's a lot. But I do want to go like in and out in a lot of these things and help it wherever I can. But I also want to see that this stuff kind of like these balls start rolling on their own without me having to push them and stay there the whole time to keep pushing them,
Right, for sure. You want to see like the people in the guild, the people in the community kind of just branch out and do all the things.
Yeah, well, and if it doesn't happen, I'd also like to think about like why doesn't that happen, and what could I maybe do to facilitate that more? Like, does the Discord need to look cuter or something? Do we need to do more outreach? Do we need to make videos on it to lure people, to recruit people? I guess to sound a little bit deceptive or something. But like.
But no, the answer is no. I haven't. I figured probably around 270 is when I'd start like reaching out about it, because I figured maybe like 273, 274 start actually running Black Mage. But I also don't know, or I haven't. I'll have to run a BA when I get around 270
sure
and
thing,
see
yeah.
even with the level reduction if we're kind of in the ballpark for damage, or if maybe I do need to push to closer to 275.
Yeah, you could always run a BA now at your current level, with the other same requirements, so just bring down the level and I kind of see
and
where
just
you're
scale
at.
it up based on
and then because then that if you level up, then if you're at boss level, you'll roughly be the same. You'll probably be a little bit stronger by then because of, scaling stuff, but you might be a little bit weaker because there's event buffs right now, so that hopefully that kind of like cancels each other out. So you can have like a rough estimate if you're just like at the 50 bill a second mark, or if you're like looking closer to be at the 100 bill a second mark. That way you can know if you definitely would need to make a bunch of investments or not. Because if I just look at the stat window, like I see 45k stat, that's definitely getting in the ballpark. I see that the interoperability definitely has some room there though, and that the IED is pretty high, so I'm assuming your WSE has got some IED in it that might need to be re-rolled at some point.
Yeah, it does, and dude, interoperability made me so mad this last Sunday. Like 3 million Honor EXP, I was running drop and Meso, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, almost all my Meso at this point comes from bossing mules, very little bit from farming, so I was like, okay, 3 million Honor XP, it's time to re-roll it. I'll go for, damage to debuff and crit, and we ended up with speed and strength and luck. So you know what? We'll wait for the next one to save up more Honor EXP.
Oh, damn. Yeah, wait, you rolled last Sunday?
I rolled it,
or was it 2
whether it
weeks
was last
ago?
Sunday or the Sunday before, whichever the last 50% off was.
Oh.
I can't remember exactly which one.
Okay. Well,
and like I did okay. Like I just probably should have settled a little bit before I did. I was like, okay, epic crit, that's good, but let's go for unique. And then you get down to like, 500,000 Honor EXP left, and you're like, ooh, probably should have settled 1 million Honor EXP ago when I had pretty decent gains.
Yeah,
but,
the hindsight. Well, so okay, well, don't feel too bad. I can go into interoperability a little bit, so make sure you have a better plan for next time.
Yeah, I figured I also could have just circed for crit eventually, and then re-rolled the boss damage because it's so easy to get on top line. But
yeah, so that would be the way to go. I do have the interoperability command for that as well. So typically the unique lines, the best unique lines are pretty close to legendary lines, and so because when you circulate, you always get the highest number within the rarity. It's usually advised to circ first and then roll the top line, because even if the top line is a little bit, imperfect, but the unique line is perfect, that combination of the two will always be better than having a perfect interoperability line like you have now, like legendary, but then nothing on the second and the third. So it will cost money, but it'll make sure that 3 million of Honor EXP, it has a much higher chance of netting you with a, close to 2 line versus more likely a 1 line like you have now.
Yeah, and that's what I had kind of thought about originally. I got up to like 2 million, 3 million Honor EXP, and I'm like, I should probably just, circulate for the crit or for debuff to ball, debuff, damage to debuff if I want it.
Or cooldown reset is also good for Adele.
For Adele. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, yeah, but I don't really want to spend Meso circing right now, just because I still want to push the Arcanes to 19, I want to start the 22 push. I was like, I kind of want to save that for that. And you're thinking in your head like, 3 million should be enough. You you look at the average, and you're like, I should come close to what I want. And then you're just like, oh, well, now here we are.
Yeah. Well, usually I don't see 2 or 3 million as 2 or 3 million honor. I usually see that as like a year and a half of honor. That's more how I see it. And to me, it's more like, is the fact that I get a decent chance of a currency I just spent like a year and a half building, is that enough, or is it better to just be in a position? So what I usually do is I'd be like, okay, I have 2 to 3 mil honor. I want to make the move from just having a mobbing one to a bossing one, like you said, right? Because your income is coming from boss meal, so that's a good time to do it. And you want to commit more to like Tenebris stuff, Chaos Tenebris stuff, and work towards Black Mage. So you want to get more bang for your buck from your interoperability. That's a good time to do it. Then I would just always set a budget for circulators and just be like, okay, well, there's a 50% off this Sunday. So Sunday I'll buy, I don't know, you can use a calculator or something, because I think there is one under Suckhart's calculators. And you'd be like, I'm gonna spend 4 bill on circulators or something. Like that's
right.
If you make like 10, I don't know. So how much would you say you make a week just from like bossing fans and all the other stuff when you have, on an average week?
Probably like 10 to 11 bill.
Yeah. So you could very easily say, I think I'm just going to spend 1 week's worth, right? Because 10 bill seems like a lot, but if you think about it in terms of this is an event that comes around every few months, and I make 10 bill a week back, then 10 bill isn't that much in the grand scheme of things. But 10 bill can get you a lot of circs. And it's interoperability wise is like if you get a good unique and you get the legendary that you want, you're very close to being completely done forever with that. And if you look at it in the same way of like it's like an item's potential that you're cubing, if eventually you're going for 27-30% potential, you're going to be spending more than that per item, or like around that at least. So it's just like another item basically that you're looking at. So in order to, well, pun not intended, but in order to honor that value of the honor EXP, I think it is worth that investment of mesos, but I would always set a budget. I would never just say like, oh, I'm going to blindly roll circs until I hit what I want to hit, because then you can go bankrupt, and I will feel bad, and then all the other pushes, like you were talked about, all that gets delayed. So I would just set a budget, be like, I'm going to spend 2 bill, or I'm going to spend 5, or I'm going to spend 10, and you only spend up to that, and then no more. And then if you don't hit, you're like, okay, I'll try again next 50% off, and my ability stays like it is for now.
And that's pretty much the approach I took to the cube sale, just to like set budgets, pick some things I wanted to cube, go for it. If I hit, I hit. If I don't, I don't. But then I feel like no matter how logical you try to be, you log on the alt, like I get on the Dawn Warrior, hit perfect enter in like 500,000 honor EXP, and I'm like, oh, well, now I've got to go on the Adele because, like Dawn Warrior boss mule is perfect now. I got the crit, I got the damage to debuff, I got the boss damage just done. Like, this is clearly the way, even though mathematically it's not. You're just like in the moment, you're like, okay, cool, I'm gonna do it.
yeah, I know. I get what you mean. I went on a boss mule. I was like, oh, I'll pick up the honor from the shop, and I was like, oh no, wait, I still have some honor. Now if I roll what I want, then I could have used the honor on another character. And of course, in like 4 rolls, I roll what I wanted, and then that honor XP is now stuck on that character forever. Yeah, but as you scale up bossing mules, you get a lot of honor EXP from bosses, actually quite a bit, that you can start transferring over. So there is a scaling on there.
Right. I've really just started doing that over the last month or so. Like, 'cause normally, if you finish the bosses, click the things you need on the boss mules, and then sell the crystals, log off. And I was like, it's only, I think it's what, 5,000 for the ones you can transfer, but still, you're running 7 boss mules, it adds up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's some event ones that are 10k, but mostly it's the 5k ones. Yeah.
And actually started running Dojo for once.
I was gonna say, Dojo's honor EXP will definitely help you as well. Yeah. And it gives you access to the Spirit Penance there as well, right? If you're going to do the training with Dojo Spirit Penance, even though they're only 3 days, if you combine that with the regular Spirit Penance you get in the daily login, you could potentially cover like an entire month's worth, only accepting like 2 or 3 days. You could actually have a pennant on at almost at all times. So just with the 3 day ones.
It's been super nice. Now I think we're on like day 20 of prepared.
Yep. Yeah, we have 2 of those, right?
Now.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the last one just ran out. Just pulled the one from the current reward shop, and I'm like, man,
just keep going.
This is really nice.
Yeah. I think my mom ended up getting a coupon for one from a Monster Park box. This is like very rare, nice. I think on Sundays, but like a 60-day prepared one. And it's like, oh,
2 months.
Guess we're grinding.
Yeah.
That's I
feel like your mom is always grinding though.
Yeah.
I look at the levels and I'm like, damn, putting me to shame.
Yeah, she keeps going. Yeah, every time she gets close to me, I'm like, well, like it's not that I don't want my mom to pass me. I don't really care to that extent, but it's good to keep my balance within where I spend my time in the games. Like I definitely don't spend enough time leveling if my 2 highest level characters only 1 level above my mom's 2 highest level characters. And she started so much later too.
But also, like, you started leveling the DA, and I'm like, oh, leveling is not quite as long of a process as I kind of thought it was,
Those dailies help a lot, right?
They do, and I like not tune in for a week, and I'm like, holy crap, you're getting 2 levels on DA this week from like 266 to 268 is crazy.
Oh yeah, back then was that still totems back then? I was like using the last.
It might have been post totem during haste. I don't know. It was during
haste
leveling
was big,
event for sure. But I'm like, okay, like take advantage of the events. You can gain these levels, quicker.
Yeah,
than,
there was the night market. No, what was it called again? The
Night Troop.
Yeah, the Night Troop was out as well. That was nuts. And that's already like a nerfed version of what it was at first, but that's still like a nutty training event. Yeah.
But even during non-event, like the levels aren't taking that long currently.
Yeah,
now that I'm like actively trying to, okay, I'll put in 30 minutes of leveling a day.
It's all contrast, right? People who come into this game compared to like, maybe they play WoW, and then you can cap in a week or something, right? If you just do like main quest line and stuff like that, it's like it takes forever to level. But I played back in 2006, so for me this is it's always fast because back then it was just endless. People like Fangblade getting to 200 was going at 0.3% an hour, I think. So.
Yep. No, for sure. Yep.
Or you see Nero training, like that bar just does not move.
Yeah. No, and I played back then as well, not as seriously. Like this is a game I've been playing for years. It's always kind of just been like that game in the background when nothing else seemed like super interesting or I had time to play, just play at it. But now it's mostly what I play just because it works best with the work schedule, like I said.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Okay. So I guess since we're I think we're well introduced and I've got a good feel for what you want and where you're at. Should we go through all the screenshots, see if there's anything that you maybe have any questions on? I don't know if you've written anything down that you want to get to, because you're already pretty far into the game with this character, so probably most of the basics will already make sense.
Yeah, I feel like I have a good idea of, how to play the game and how the systems work, things like that. My biggest questions really came when it comes to tapping to 22.
Okay.
And because you've done it now in 2 characters, and like how to handle it in the best emotional way, because it's a little bit different than tapping to 19 or 21, where the variance is considerably smaller on the high end and the low end.
Yes. Yeah.
Like you can reliably get 19s and 2-3 backups. You can reliably get 21s and 6 or 7 backups. You start talking about 22, and
probably 4 already, like. 4 backups for 21, probably. But then there's that one CRA piece that just blows 30 times.
Right, and now all of a sudden your delta on 22 is vastly increased.
Yeah. Well, that comes in power in numbers, right? If you do all your items, there's gonna be 1 or 2 that just
100%,
don't want to go.
20 times.
And 2 other items are just gonna one tap and be like, oh, that's done. That's your reality. Yeah, you don't want to get baited by the easy ones, and you don't want to get discouraged by the hard ones. It's a mental battle. Yeah.
Right. So I was just, I wanted to pick your brain on. Obviously, there's some things like I have a lot of dineros, so Commercy should be pretty easy to get. 22s on those. Obviously, CRA, you have endless backups. Like I'll push 22 on those. I figure those will be the first few items, CRA and the Sweetwater pieces. But when it comes to things like rings, like all my damage rings currently are sitting at 21. But like, do you risk just tapping those to 22 if you have backup, or like, do you just make a whole new Kana treasure ring, and if it hits 22, great, you turn the 21 into great drop gear, and you move on that way? Or is it worth like, okay, I got Kana treasure ring backups, but maybe only 7. Is it worth going for the 22 and potentially being back at 17? Or like I said, you just make a new one, and whenever it hits 22, that becomes the new damage piece. The old 21 becomes drop. And like, which way have you found keeps your sanity in check a little bit better?
Yeah, there's like a huge flow chart in my brain. So first of all, it's like, what is the purpose of the character, right? Like, how strong do I want it to be? What content do I want it to be able to do? If this is your character, like you're pushing endgame, and you have plenty of backups, there's no other character in your account where you feel like you can make serious jumps in the access to content that it has right now with the money that you have available, and you do want to dedicate it to this character because either you did the BA and you do find that you still need more damage, that kind of stuff, or you just, that's just the natural progression of this character, you just don't have any interest of pushing anything else right now, then that's like that first box ticked, right? The second one is you looking at the individual pieces. One part is going to be looking at its potential. If it's got really good potential, you might treat it differently because of potentially transfer hammering over. And the second one is transfer hammering a realistic thing for this item, or is it going to stay the same copy, and can you trace over and thus save the potential? Those two things are going to go kind of hand in hand. And then the other thing that slightly goes hand in hand with that is the backups, of course. Now, some of those are very specific. You have Kana treasure rings. Those are backups for Kana treasure rings. But like you mentioned, dineros, you mentioned Gollux coins. Those are more, those are shared backups. So for those, other pieces are connected with each other. And then when you're talking about rings specifically, there's also the matter of Oz rings and burst from that. Since your 3-minute class and the 3-minute Oz ring would bring a lot of damage to your class in the form of a roar, that's heavily advised, which does mean that at least one of your rings, typically the one that's the weakest or the one that's the least likely to make an upgrade because of backups, which I think a lot of people then jump to, Sorkana Treasure because that's the lowest base stat. To me, I usually jump to Reinforced. Yeah, because you want to keep your Gollux coins for getting all your superiors up to 22. Now, once that's done, you can always circle back to the Reinforced for sure. But you also have, like you said, you have a guaranteed 21 sitting in your inventory at that point, which means that could become a really good dropper Mezzo ring. Or, like me, like if you want to min-max on your Legion power, just one that you equip to make sure that you have more Star Force going on so you get more Legion coins. And then overarching with all of that is just where do you have the once you've made that first decision on like this is where I want to spend my money. I guess kind of like in between those 2 points is where can you get the biggest bang for your buck, right? Where can you get the most efficiency? That's always the overarching question. So rings is decently high, but I would say like CRA is pretty much always going to win. You're pretty much always going to 22 your CRA first, just because you have so many more backups and because you don't transfer hammer into them. So potential is safeguarded, and it's just about throwing enough money at it, right? It's just always going to happen.
Right, you're going to hit eventually.
Yeah, or should, no guarantees from me. Don't go come asking for your mezzos back. The other thing, so with the rings, I like the kind of treasure is probably gonna go first, right? Because you can get the most backups there. And then when it comes to the superior and the guardian, it's usually it's just about tapping. You have 30% on the superior Gollux ring. What did I end up doing with my character? I think on my arc I ended up doing it the other way. Because of the amount of rings that I had, because I think I had a superior 21 as well, like added to this, and then there's extra value in that piece as well. If it goes, that it can transfer hammer back into the superior and potentially back into the slime. So a lot of possibilities here. So let me look at so you talked about backups a little bit, right? So you got 6 kind of treasures, you got 2 slimes, and then you got 2 reinforced, and then.
Those are just damage gear on the left.
Those are damage gear, And in terms of coins,
the Gollux are reinforced.
Like Gollux coins, how are you looking at?
Gollux coins, I have 4,000, and then dineros, I have 6,000.
Okay, so that's a very healthy amount. And so connected with that, we need to know the other accessories, right? How are those? Are they all 21?
Yeah, I think everything but arcanes is 21 now.
Okay, and Arcane's at 17, jumping up to 19, right? Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully at Shining they'll be 19 this time.
Yeah, so I would, you'd have to throw this into calculator if you want to get like the mathematical outlook, but I would say like CRA to 22 and like Arcanes from 17 to 19. I probably do the Arcanes a little bit earlier, but it might depend on if you get, easy boxes or if you're gonna have to spend 5 bill each on all. It doesn't seem like you have any backups right now.
Yeah, so I had 3 backup arcanes, 2 boxes actually, luckily, and then 1 shoulder during the last 5, 10, 15 we had, not shiny, but 5, 10, 15. And of course, managed to blow all of them up before 19.
Okay,
as you
lovely.
would.
Yeah.
But this time I figured with this shining, like arcanes to 19 is a pretty big power bonus. Like I'll try to do that before I do CRA. So like my goal this shining would be arcanes to 19 first, except for the weapon. CRA to 22, and then if Meso left, we'll go with Sweetwater to 22. Because again, those feel fairly safe.
Yeah, because you have so many backups.
You got a lot of backups, and then theoretically, arcanes, you have as many backups as you have droplets. So as long as you can afford to buy the other ones.
Yeah, I'm thinking if there should be different priorities in the 22s based on the potential, because you could say like, well, if you 22 something that doesn't have perfect potential now, then you can go ham on the potential because you're keeping the item forever. Whereas if it already has good potential now and then you try to 22, you might have to completely redo it if it doesn't go.
Right, and it's not something you can easily just tap on the item.
Another factor for order of tapping the stuff could also be that once you 22 when you're done, that could also take away like a daily or a weekly from your routine, so that you can start saving up time from then on. Although you've already got so many coins, it's probably already fine to stop, but it's a good feeling to know that you have, that your Sweetwater stuff and that yours superior is 22, because then you don't have to do that daily ever again, or you can completely exchange it with other people, right? You don't have to
Yeah.
look for drops.
Yeah, I wrestle with that like weekly on Commercy. I'm like, should I just stop Commercy? We're at 30 backups for Eye and Face. Realistically, like 16 backups or so for Necklace. But I'm like, if I stop, I will get unlucky on those, and then all of a sudden I'll be out of dineros, and I should have just kept running it. So
Yeah.
I figure I'll just keep running until they hit 22, and then I'll just stop. And if I have thousands of dineros left over, then so be it.
Yeah, the thing is, it's mostly, I feel like 22ing is definitely a way of, it's a little bit bait for people who don't make that much money. So that would be like my concern, is that I would definitely do the BA first, right? And it's going to see where you're at and see if how much damage you really still need. Because you could definitely run Black Mage if you're like full 21, you get your Arcanes up to 19. I'm pretty sure you'll be there for damage, and it might be a matter of seeing where your whole party is at and seeing if you want to min-max there, like a personal decision. I want to make sure definitely that you're not just going for 22 because it's there, and then end up maybe spending a whole lot of money on that, and before you get what you want, just because it exists, right?
Right, for sure. And like, I haven't attempted to tap anything to 22 yet. It just didn't seem like it made any sense to. So I don't feel like this innate need for it to be like, oh, cool, the piece is done, like, can move on.
Okay.
It just kind of seemed like, okay, after the arcanes get to 19, like CRA to 22 just seems like the next logical progression there.
Yeah, pretty much, because it's not like your potentials are bad or anything either. There's definitely like a few items. It would either be like tapping a 22, or I would say like the alternative would be to like completely min-max your WSE. But you've already got some interesting things here. I guess like going for 3-line on the weapon could be maybe a thing before that.
Yeah, I thought about it. I had the IED double attack secondary for a long time. But I also have IED on the emblem, one line there. So I was like, okay, we need, calculator says I need at least one line of boss on the secondary, 2 lines ideally for me at the time. So that was kind of just something I was throwing, at the time, any cubes I got from bosses on, and eventually, you hit 2-line boss, 1-line attack. So I'm like, okay, cool. We'll use the bossing secondary for now. I guess just might as well hold on to the IED one in case, later on you ever fight Kalos or something, it might mathematically make sense to switch back to the IED one. But 3-lining the emblem is definitely on the list at some point, especially since familiar-wise I have IED instead of boss at the moment.
Yeah, I saw that as well. Yeah, for the IED, you can definitely make because the emblem is going to be really hard to reroll. I mean, mathematically, like cost-wise, it's not that. It's among it's the cheapest one in WSE, but you're rolling out of a prime line though, so that's always a little bit of a.
Exactly, and when I throw it in the calculator, like the IED is still pretty good. Like even up to high numbers, the IED is still not. It's not like a lost line. It's still pretty decent. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, I don't really want to throw black cubes at the emblem.
No,
and I'm not ready to dump tens of billions into just hard going for.
Yeah, for sure.
3-line attacks there.
Exactly. You've got Saren Emblem if you really want to move around with all of that stuff. And the main thing is that you now have all the space in the world to go completely for boss fems without needing to feel like your balance might be tilted in some way. I will say though, for the same reason, it does also mean that you can go completely ham on the potential of your weapon.
Yep.
Because you'll most likely end up with some kind of boss and regular attack combination, which will then free up your secondary again to freely reroll there. But those are the expensive rolls, so it's really going to come down to you what you wanna go on, is whether you want a 22 or that first. But since the Shining is coming up, it feels like 22 is more opportune in that time.
Yeah, it always feels bad, or it has currently always felt bad to try to reroll the potential in the weapon. Like it's changed a little bit. It's gone from 2-line attack and a non-prime strength line to what it is currently. but it just seems to be that thing that like if I get extra black or whatever their current black cubes are called,
Oh, bright cubes, yeah.
yeah, they just
Mhm.
end up going on the weapon, like in case I hit something
Yeah.
crazy. And if not, I kind of just leave it because, like you said, I
Mhm.
kind of look at it like, I mean, ideally, now that I'm thinking about going for Black Mage, it will get replaced, and it should be good enough to get through, Liberation with, even if the potential doesn't
Mhm.
change.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah, you don't think you have to risk too much. But again, if you're gonna start liberating in 6 months and it's an 8 month process, you're talking about like next year, like
Yeah,
July or something, right?
right.
So there's still a whole lot of time to get more mileage out of that potential. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad investment.
Yeah, and I think if I had like 500 bill or something and I felt like I could afford to do basically everything, it was just
Mm-hmm.
about waiting for events, I probably would, like, during the cube
Yeah.
sale this time, just dropped, money on probably the emblem and the weapon just to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but over the last like year and a half, I've kind of been in that cycle of like in between events, I usually get around like 100 bill. And so then I'll use that. But like 100 bill is a lot, but it's also not a lot. It still evaporates fairly quickly
Yeah, because you
when
take
you're
on bigger
tapping things.
projects. Yeah, and then it just
Yeah,
goes faster. As well, especially if
yeah,
you're gonna start tapping arcanes, especially if you go trying to go past 19. Yeah, your money just
right,
melts away.
exactly. And I also like I probably fund my boss mules more than I'd say a decent amount of people. Like all
Mm-hmm.
the boss mules are legendary 2-line 17 star, just because I don't feel like
Okay.
putting any extra effort in. So the
Mm-hmm.
last shining, I think I spent like 50 bill just finishing that on the 7 boss mules, just getting those to the point where if I wanted to, they can do up to slime pretty easily.
Yeah, that
But
that should be easy slimes. Yeah. So that's up to
yeah,
the Pathfinder, and then the Buck does some lower level ones, or
no, the buck does up through Lotus and Damien currently.
okay.
So
All right.
yep. And then I do slime on the first 4, so through the Wind Archer. It's a
Okay.
little bit longer on the Wind Archer, but it still gets it cleared pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's okay on a DPM. So, but you don't really get a
Yeah.
whole lot of oomph out of the
No,
bind and
and
out of
I
the
mean,
burst, right?
Wind Archer's a little bit better burst now than it was a year
Yeah,
ago.
that's true.
You
For
get
sure. Yeah.
2 large tornadoes and whatnot. Wind Archer just easy boss mule in general, though.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay. Well, you
but
got the
like
8K.
all the boss mules are, yeah. I should hit 8K Legion during this event, like
Yep.
pretty easily. The tough part with Legion for me currently is just going to be making the final push to 200 on a lot of them
Mm-hmm.
and get the extra Legion block, because I'm bad about just leaving them at, that 285 to 270 range, or sorry, 185 to 170 range. So at
Right.
some point I gotta actually push those to 200.
Well, you got the dolphin now, and there's more
Yep.
like bunk potions and stuff like that coming up in the savior update. So at the latest in savior, right, should see that 8K, which gives a lot of boss damage as well, right? It's gonna be
Yeah.
at least 15 more boss damage, up to 20, depending on the size of the
Yeah.
pieces.
It's just hard with the bonks not to look at like oh, am I better off just raising, the fire poison from 120 to 141 and then using them on there until it gets up into the 170s, because you
Mm-hmm.
get the most Legion levels, even though then okay, when I go back to this character, I'm probably going to have to dump, 100 mil into cubes and running Horntail or Zachem to gain some accessories so that it's not
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
a slow slog
Oh yeah.
damage wise, but because it will be.
Yeah. That's a downside, but
Yeah.
you're getting a huge head start with the extra levels.
Right. So, but I figure like easily by the end of this event, we should be at 8K, 7920 sitting
Mm-hmm.
here right now. So it's only 80 more levels.
Oh yeah, you already made it extra 30. Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and the extra bunk a day as well, starting at the next floor, which isn't in too long, right? Is it 3 more
It's
days?
coming up in like a few days.
3 more days, and then we get to the top floor, so that should speed it up a little bit as well. Okay.
Yep.
Um.
Yep.
But yeah, 22ing. Yeah, I think your order is pretty much correct. I would look. So for most people, I think they rush superior a little bit too quickly. But I think if you have 4,000 coins, I think it's a good time to either right before or right after Sweetwater to probably give that a try as well. If you know you want to do it eventually. But yeah, like I said, I don't think the reinforced ring is that necessary. You already have 2 backups, but I think just because you have the backups, I don't think you should feel forced to tap that. I will say in the long run that like looking into Oz and looking into getting a roar will take a lot of pressure off of all the other upgrades you will feel like you need to do or that you need to do, just in terms of sheer damage output and BA power for stuff like Black Mage.
Yeah, Oz,
Yeah.
Oz is like on the Oz and farming fams are at some point on the to-do list. It's just I haven't figured out where to slot them in yet.
Yeah, it's quite time
And
consuming.
right, and there's a I look at it from a okay, when does it make sense from like a time to
Mm-hmm.
power perspective? Because that's one aspect of it. It's like okay, like I can start pushing 22s on everything, or like things that are hard to get backups on. Maybe that doesn't even make sense yet. Maybe now it is time
Mm-hmm.
to do Oz because that on the average, I'll hit after X amount of runs on average, and then that'll be a power gain that will exceed this. But then comes the like mental check of it of like, man, I don't want to do Oz. Like I don't mind Commercy, but I don't want to do
Mm-hmm.
Oz. Even though I know it's on the docket at some point. So I just had to figure out when like it won't feel like such a sunk amount of time
Mm-hmm.
when I inevitably don't hit after hundreds of runs.
Yeah, that waiting can definitely help you out with the slime ring, right? Because if once
Yep.
you have like if you have like 5 or 6 slime rings, then it's really just tap on the slime ring and don't worry about transfer hammering and all that bullshit. Unless you get like
Right. And
really
that's
really
that's kind of
unlucky.
what I
Yeah.
that's what I figured. I'm like I don't really want to use, more Superior Golix rings and
Mm-hmm.
and all that just to transfer to the slime. I was lucky in my first slime,
Yeah.
went to 21 without booming.
Mm-hmm.
I did transfer a Superior ring um
Sure.
to
Into it.
get
Yeah.
to get to
Mm-hmm.
20 initially. And then I got lucky, got 2 more slime rings from normal pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows? It might be a year before I see another normal,
Yeah.
slime ring. It might just end up, duoing
Yeah.
or trioing
Well,
chaos to
the
start
the
getting them.
the other thing is as well that going to using the superior rings to transfer over isn't necessarily an annoying thing. The only really annoying thing about the whole system is that you can only buy one a week. Because
Right. And so that
if
was
there was a Star Force event and just on that day you could buy 3 or 4 of them, then it'd be okay.
exactly
But like having to buy 1 or 2 and then maybe using them all and then having to buy another one and then maybe not going and then having to need that 4th, or maybe not needing them and then having those coins sitting your that's
so
the
and
that's
that
the
that was going to
shitty
be
part.
a that was going to be a question I had. One of the questions I'd written down was when you get to this point, did you just start buying Superior Golix rings when they were available because you're going to tap them eventually? And like you said, when a shining or something happens, you basically only get 2 buys. It gets
Yeah.
announced, you buy one,
Mm-hmm.
you wait a week, and then you can buy another. And then just risk, okay, cool. If I hit, great. And then I've got the extras in my inventory. They can be slime fodder or something down the road. Or did you kind of just hold on to Golix coins? And
Yeah, it's
which way
almost
did you
like
find worked better?
it's almost like picking arcanes from a box, right? Before,
Right.
yeah. Um,
The
so
difference is with arcanes, they force you to choose because it
yeah,
runs out.
yeah. It's like you have a timer. Yeah, it's like here you have your Golex coins. They run out in a week. Good luck. Yeah. It's a little bit more forced that way, exactly. Well, so I was fortunate enough that my DA, my ARC ran old Golex for a long time, so I had access to thousands of coins. Like, you have 4,000. I had like, I think my ARC had. I still have the old coins exchanging because I still there haven't been enough weeks passed for me to have exchanged all of them because you can only exchange
Gotcha.
100 a week. So I think my
Yep.
DA in total was at like 8K and my ARC was at like 12K or something. So at that point you just buy and
Yeah,
just
you
stock
just
up on
have
them.
such an absurd backup.
So I made sure that I bought at least 2 before the week itself, and then I can buy a third. And then maybe even a third, and then maybe like a 4th. But if you're at 4,000 coins, there's 700 each. That's 2.8. That might be a bit much, but I'd probably buy at
Right.
least. So these are out. Yeah, see, I still on my ARC, I still have 8,500 of the current coins and still 1,300 of the old ones. So
Yeah.
it was just way too much Galaxy. Just
Right.
yeah, overkill. I think do I still have back. Yeah. So I still have 8 superior pennants from before then. I see I still have superior earrings I bought quite a bit of because that was the last one I needed. So I got 2 drops, I think, and bought 3 extra, and I could buy another one on the day of. But it ended up going to 22 without booming there. So yeah, now they're
Right,
sitting
and
in my inventory.
I'm sure that'll happen for me as well. Like I've got a ton
Mm-hmm.
of earring backups. I think I'm up to 9 earring backups now just from drops, but I got 2 belts. So I know as soon as I tap earrings, it'll go right there, and then belts will blow up.
Most likely, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so for rings, I did it a little bit differently. So kind of like the other option that you had was that I had a 21 with 30%, but like a 9% all stat line. But it's technically better, but not tremendously. And then because I don't believe. Oh no, I still have my Meister ring. I think I had another Kana treasure. I think my Kana treasure went into that. Yeah. I also had a 22 Kana treasure, because slime didn't exist for the longest time, right? So when I got the slime ring to 22, I figured I will do the extra. I will just do the Kana treasure that I have. That's not completely useless because I have plenty of, backup rings and drop rate and mezzo. Like that's all taken care of. I'll use that one into a 21 superior, into a new one, and then try to tap that one. So that if it goes, I'll just have to redo the pot. So it went, so I just tapped the existing one. And this was all in one session. I think it's on a YouTube video somewhere that I got like 5 rings to 22 in one session without any booms. It was really ridiculous. And so this is the other superior ring that ended up getting to 22. So I was like, well, now I have a 22. You don't really need 2 22 superior rings, right? Like or a 22 and a 21. Like it doesn't really give a lot of function to my account. So I decided to tap the other one, and the other one also went. So now this one is just sitting in my inventory for, future purpose somewhere. Maybe double mezzo obtain, to try to get some damage out of whatever. If you want to min max, if some level 285 area comes out, where you need like insane damage to be able to kill anything, but you still want to get some mezzo obtain, something like that. But it can spread the risk, and you can be that. Maybe greedy, but maybe safe when you have that many coins. But again, the second aspect is, do you have the mezzos to also, quote unquote, run the risk of having the funds that go into a 22-star ring just kind of sitting in your inventory for maybe a rainy day.
Right.
That's the trade-off. Yeah.
Yeah, the other reason I thought about maybe for the accessories just remaking them and turning the 21s into drop is like I currently don't have any issues killing in Cernium or Burnium with like full drop in Mesogeron and Pendant of Spirit. But, things like Hotel and Odium are another step up. So
yeah.
I guess I'll figure that out when I get there. Like, oh, maybe I do need more damage. Maybe it makes sense to do that then. But
I think Odium, lowest sacred maps on Odium are, I think, is it 200 that Odium starts at? Well, that's pretty, it's 10% final damage loss for every 10, right? So, it's 230, yeah. So, yeah. Yeah, someone said tap to 230, to 23. It is possible that somewhere in the future, like 23 starring becomes something that maybe becomes lucrative or maybe becomes useful, and then having it in my inventory can give me a little leg up there. But according to statistics, one of them should have boomed, so I should have been just left with one. I just lucked out in that one situation. But there are different options, and I would definitely pre-buy a few just to give you peace of mind. But mostly, it's mostly just going to be pendants and rings, because the other ones you just want to get it through running the boss for the belts and the earrings. But I don't think you've got like 2. Are these all superior?
Yeah, the earrings are all superior.
They're all Jesus. Yeah. Okay. So you shouldn't need to buy
like
any
I
of
said,
those.
like,
If 10.
and that's why I said the earring will probably go first tap, and then the belt will boom a million times.
Yeah, that's a good chance. Yeah. Downside with if the belt booms though, you don't have the you'll want to transfer hammer again immediately, right?
Right.
So you
exactly.
want to start grabbing some belts for that. And then once you get like 5 or 6 or 7 superior belts, then you can weed out the 140 belts again.
Right, and it got to the point where eventually I was like, okay, cool, once the belt hit 21, I'm getting rid of all of my pink beam belts and whatnot just to save inventory space. They're not hard to restock back up on.
No, for sure. Yeah. For normal and chaos, you can get them back quite quickly.
Yeah. And then the other thing comes when it comes to like familiars. We talked about Oz, and then talk about FAMs as well. Like boss
Mhm.
FAMs, when I run through the calculator, are huge damage increases,
Mhm.
huge, respectively to other sources of damage increase at this point.
Mhm.
But I can't imagine at this point going back to farm FAMs until 275. But I don't know if you have like a different opinion on that. But it feels like gaining the levels would be more beneficial when you talk about progressing to bosses like Black Mage, where there's still a level disadvantage.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely people who. So again, part one is do that BA, see where you're at now, see where you would be
Yep.
scaling wise, and see how much you really need. An Ozring is going to do way more for your damage output than bossing Fems will here in this situation. You're quite DPM heavy, so it is still pretty good. But in Black Mage, it's pretty reliable, but in a lot of other fights, you probably have noticed that your Noble Summons, your Rune, your Blossom, they tend to miss quite a bit.
Damien's a great
Oh,
example of
yeah,
that.
it just walks out of everything, just teleports away.
Everything.
It's great. Or Will, you think you finally got the pattern down, you wait until right after a teleport, and then you just decides to insta teleport and just fuck your damage. Yeah. So you really are looking for that, especially in the party bosses. You really look for that committed burst bind damage. So I was saying, for those two things, like Oz is on like another level. It's probably bigger gain than tapping everything to 22 would be just like having an Ozring in your burst. It's like that big of a deal. Even just a row 3, not even a row 4. But when it comes to familiars, yeah, there's definitely two schools of thought. I think a lot of people, so if you know that you're going to be on track and you're going to be good for damage, a lot of people try to like crush out like the 270 and then basically go back to familiar hunting and they'll slowly level up and slowly keep progressing with dailies and with events maybe here and there, but mostly just try to crank out the familiars at that time because you have access, right? But that made it a little bit easier when Odin wasn't out yet, because now you feel like you need to push to 275 and before you can start like quote unquote semi-retiring your character. But then level 280 area is probably on the horizon, so when is that ever going to end? So it's a little bit your personal so if you feel like the party is moving really fast for Black Mage and people are like, oh, we're going to be ready in like a week or two, you might want to work a little bit harder to squeeze out like an extra level or two to get that damage. But once your party clears, I feel like that's like the green light to work more on the utility of your character rather than on the level, where you're feeling like everyone has the damage, like we're good, we just need to practice a bit more. I feel like that gives you the green light to be like, okay, I'm just going to go full ham into FAMs then, so I can close that chapter reasonably, whatever is reasonable for you, and then level more afterwards. What some other people do, but that's more people who play like multi-character, is they'll like level another character on the side and then just siphon off the familiars from that, if it has drop rate, and siphon that to your main character until the main character is good, so that your main character keep on grinding in the higher level areas that doesn't have familiars. That's another option.
Yeah, and I kind of do that, in Labyrinth already, but I don't really plan to level any of the 250s much anymore. Like even things like Magnificent Growth Potions, I usually just throw on the Adele at this point. If it's 10%, great. 10% on the Adele is better than 250 to 251 on the hero that eventually I may level, but right now it's just a boss mule. That's where it can sit.
Yeah, I threw a bunch at my Cannoneer and it ended up at 255, but yeah, I'm not really doing anything more on the characters, so it might have been better to throw it on like a 240 to get another 250. At least you get a little Legion block out of it, right?
Right. So I guess when it comes to Oz, I haven't seen you do much of Oz, if any.
That's
you
correct. Yeah, I have
done
not.
some,
I've
but
done a little bit, but very, very little for someone at my level.
right. How long would you say, like for you, the like initial learning curve for Oz was? Like we obviously have resources now.
Yeah.
There's gods all over the place, things like that. But there's still a level of learning to do it yourself that takes some time. And I think that barrier to entry holds, myself and a lot of people back from starting. Like, okay, how long is it going to take me just to even get to the point where, like, the time I put in every day is efficient in farming Oz?
Yeah. So I don't think the learning curve is that big. There's a little bit of a scaling in the beginning where you have to do a bunch of shitty runs and gather points and buy extra slots and then buy the pills. That doesn't take too long. I feel like in a week or something you can get pretty far with doing pretty long runs. But it isn't that. there's just a few floors where you have to have kind of like a system for yourself that works, where you have to like remember a bunch of moves or something. Just figure out something that works. Some people type it in the chat, some people say it out loud, you know, and then you can just go back just to remember patterns. Some people are very good at pattern recognition. Sometimes if you run a lot of runs in a row, you might start messing up your patterns. So if that's something you're prone to, you might just have to write it down or something like that. But there's usually a handful or maybe less than a handful of floors that you'll really get stuck on, and all the other ones are pretty self-evident. Like there's one floor where you have to remember the BGMs.
Yeah.
I always thought I was horrible at that, but whenever I did that floor, I almost always get them right. But of course I have my Twitch chat with me, so I'm like, it's this song, right? And then someone in chat will be like, yeah, it's that one. Or they'll be like, oh, it's this one. Oh, whoops, yeah.
The streamer cheat codes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you gotta, you know, you get shit thrown at you, so sometimes you get to take a benefit of it as well. It's a little bit of give and take.
Right. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, it's scary, and I think the scariest thing about it is the time commitment and the potentiality of getting absolutely nothing. I think that's the spookiest one, and especially if you don't feel like you have these large stretches of time available, you do have those pause floors where you can just exit, go do stuff on another character, and come back to it later. And the timer doesn't run. When it comes to the actual runs, it also comes down to like personal, you know, wanting to speed run it, because I think people do like 45-minute runs these days. I don't think I've ever gotten remotely close to that. I've mostly done old Oz though, but my runs were like, yeah, I want to say like probably like an hour and 20 to an hour and a half, and I would only go up to like floor 42 as opposed to 50. So I was very inefficient with it. I just ended up getting lucky getting a Roar 3 in I did a subathon a long time ago, and then one of the goals was to max out 1 day worth of Oz floors. So I did that, and then I opened all the boxes from that one stream, and ended up getting a Roar 3 in that. So I was like, okay, cool, now we're done. We're done with Oz. We're never going back. But it's like grinding for me. I don't really like it, but once you're in it, it's fine. But it's about starting up with it, honestly.
Yeah, I think I'd probably easily be in the camp of like get Roar 3 and be like, oh, done, not going back until there's like literally nothing left in the game to do before chasing the 4.
Like
but I say that now,
you just pitched waiting room and
yeah. Right, but I also said, I was like, oh, I'll get to 21, I can clear all the things, I won't even worry about 22, and now I'm like full 21. I'm like, okay, well, I got 100 billion Mesa, I might as well push to 22 on something.
Yeah, if you keep playing enough, then those goals that seemed completely ridiculous suddenly just become the next goals. Yeah.
Yep, for sure. But yeah, I think those are really the only big questions I had. Was just, you know, your thought process on pushing to 22, where you thought Oz kind of fit into the progression and becomes worth the time investment, and then at what point do you actually need to like start focus on upgrading the FAMs? That still feels like one of the least time efficient things to do, but just because,
it's so hit or miss. Like they are very efficient. It's a lot of damage, but it just I don't know. There was a Reddit thread, I don't know if you saw it, but that basically calculated how many familiars on average for certain outcomes.
Yeah, I did.
Once I saw those numbers, I was like, oh, that's why I'm not doing it.
Right, it's astronomical.
Is it this here? Old Reddit. Average number of familiars to get 20 IED. Just stopping at Epic is 25,000.
It's just so many FAMs.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Now you see to buy non-reboot, you know, that you just buy them by the hundreds in the shop. ID 30%.
It's okay. We just stay where we are and just wait for have the red card copium. You know?
Yeah, I don't even see the 40%, but I saw someone in I don't like those numbers. Yeah, that's pretty. I saw someone in two people were talking in Genesis like about stuff. I don't know if we were in Excel or something, and one person said to the other one, "I'm settling for 120% boss," and I was like, on FAMs, and I was like, dude, I don't. Why are you like this? This is some crazy shit. Because I don't think the 40% is even in here, because that would be too depressing to look at.
Yeah, and then I think my only other question is as far as the boss in progression going up to Black Mage, like when you get into Chaos Tenebris. So for bosses, I do Hard Lucid and Hard Will each week, and I usually solo like non-Chaos Gloom and Dark No, and then I've been working on Vihila. because I can solo normal V-Hilla.
Yeah.
I'm not great at it yet. Only been doing it about 3 weeks, but I'm like, oh, okay. Like, it was one of those bosses that for some reason I was like, oh, that boss is in the future, and then you look online, you're like, wait, the numbers would
Yeah, her level is pretty
insinuate
low. Yeah.
right,
So
and the numbers would actually insinuate that normal V-Hilla is not even remotely that bad.
no.
And
We
then
look
you
at the
try it,
ranking, and it's like she's ranked like very high or hard for
very
Hilla,
high,
right?
yeah,
Yeah. And it's like, huh?
exactly,
It feels out of place
exactly,
to have her, and then Kale's Gloom like right after normal Vihela, and Kale's
yeah,
Slime, and then Hard Darknell, and then Hard Vihela. But this is because healing fams.
right, for sure. But like in practice, like I attempt like normal V-Hilla, and I'm like, oh, I can kill this boss next week. This is not that bad. Plus, normal V-Hilla has a chance to drop Arcane, so I'm like, okay, I gotta add that to the repertoire of things that I do. But I guess the question is like, how important do you think it is before forming a Black Mage party to have like a Chaos Tenebrous group of people you do those bosses with? Or like, can you just do that all together? Like when you form the Black Mage party, y'all just do those bosses as well? Or like, should you just have a better understanding of them before you like take that step to, okay, it's time to do Black Mage?
Sure. There's a few scenarios there. Obviously there's like there's the ideal scenario where basically you're partying hard lucid hard will, and people are like, okay, this is getting way too easy. Let's split off into separate parties so we can have more chance of the pitched. But we can definitely start running like normal and party, and then once that gets easier, then just like progress as you stay in the same group, and then you kind of organically move through the stages. Darknell is definitely like a 265 level requirement if you're like even for normal. If you want to solo it for sure, but if you want to do hard Darknell, yeah, then every level is helpful.
Yeah, I've been soloing normal Darknell last like month each week, and it's the one boss I every week consider cutting out because I'm like, this boss sucks. Even though it doesn't take me long to kill it, it still sucks.
Yeah, it just every death feels unfair, and like you can't really do much about it. So
I'm like, oh gosh, chaos to this boss.
Yeah, it might be because I talked about this yesterday because I was doing a little bit like jumping into Kalos just to see what it's like in there. I still remember very vividly, like, kind of feeling the same, like what you're describing with Hard Lotus, and feeling like this is just too much going on. Like, this is, sometimes you have like 5 demolish heads on your map. Like, how are you supposed to ever do this boss fight?
Oh, there's still weeks that even though Hard Lotus doesn't take me very long, there's still weeks that I'm just like, I should just do normal Lotus and Damien because I don't feel like doing hard this week.
Yeah,
I usually still do hard, but there's always like a part of my mind that's like, I don't want to deal with 18 minutes of hard Damien or 10 minutes of Lotus potentially just screwing me because I didn't play perfectly this week.
Yeah. Well, so what I found is once I started doing Black Mage practice, and specifically Phase 3, it made Hard Lotus just feel like such a cakewalk. Just because in comparison, Black Mage was so much harder, and there was so much more to respond to, and so much less time to respond to everything. So much more stuff that would kill you. That in relation to that, relatively, it just felt like Lotus was absolute like baby time. Like there was just nothing going on. You had so much time to respond to everything, and plus as your character keeps growing and keeps getting stronger, you just blow up Lotus. Like sometimes you're like, oh, that was a little bit longer than usual. It's like, oh, I completely forgot G skills, but you don't actually notice like that huge of a difference in the kill time and everything like that. So sometimes I think you have to turn it up to a 12 so that whatever feels like a 10 can just scale down, and I think that's what's happening now with like Sea Gloom and Kalos, especially if you're doing that on characters without Darksight. Sea Gloom and Hard Darknell. That once you start practicing like Saren and Kalos, and you start getting a little bit more proficiency in that, I think relatively C10 will start feeling a lot easier, and like you have more chance. I think it's just by contrast that it'll get easier. It's either that or doing it in a party, but I'm very much of the mindset that if you're doing those bosses in a party, why are you doing it? Oh, to get like a 1 in a bajillion chance for a drop, but then you have to share it with 6 people. to me, for the longest time, I was just, just blow up normal on both, get the mezzo, get the fuck out, and then once you get really strong or you get libbed, whichever, or you have a kit that suits itself very well for the difficulty. It wasn't until like 275 passed. Last week is the first week I tried on my DA to see, see Gloom, see Dark Now, Hard Dark Now, to see if I could do those in a reasonable time, because the DPM is better than on my arc, and my arc is doing them.
So that was kind of my thought process, was like, obviously Lucid and Will you need to get into quickly because you need droplets for Arcane.
Yep.
Might as well start stockpiling them, even if you have to struggle run 6 people, it makes sense to do it. But then, like you said, I look at Gloom and Dark Now and I'm like, okay, you get to the point where you're like, okay, can I solo this, normal version? Okay, cool, I can. Can I party, like 6-man party Chaos? Probably. But like, is it that much more beneficial than just soloing normal, not having to deal with the coordination of the party, taking the Meso and leaving? So that's kind of what I've been doing with them. And then just, like I said, now gonna add in normal versus Hilla, because it seems like it should be in there.
There's still for you now. There's still the value of the possible arcane backups, right? That's the one extra thing. Yeah. Right,
for sure. And that's what I was thinking about the other day. It's like, should I just at least maybe 3 or 4 man, find 3 or 4 people to do these with, because I think we could realistically do it.
If you think you could find the time, because I think up until you have like 21 arcanes, that's probably good. And then once you have 21, what I usually did is just either solo or don't, just wait until you have a fuck ton of money and then nothing to spend it on, and and then you gather up backups just from doing hard Lucid, hard Will, and from doing the other bosses solo, and then hard Vihilla, that kind of stuff. And from the Black Mage runs, those drop a lot. Like, it's almost, I don't want to say guaranteed, but it's pretty much always 1 box, but a lot of times it's 2 boxes that drop from Black Mage. So then after a while, it's just like 22 arcanes, then just, you're looking at inventory, you got like 3 of everything. It's like, well, I just need inventory space, so let's tap to 22 kind of thing. But I think up until that point, it's probably, I would probably advise, if you have the time, to look at the chaos party. But then again, like, if a week it doesn't happen, or you feel like a week you don't have time at all, then you could just go into normal, blow up normal, and just cash in and sit it out.
Yeah, and then sorry, last question that I skipped over earlier. When it comes to gear, when it comes to Twilight Mark specifically, do you think it is really worth going 22 on the Twilight Mark? If, like, because I'll have 22 Sweetwater after this shiny more than likely, and I got infinite backups on Sweetwater effectively. Like, when I look at the damage comparatively, you do get the 10 boss from having it with the Guardian Angel Ring. But like, I'm looking at it, I'm like, do I want to spend the money and the time and the potential backups needed for it to do it, versus just waiting for pitch, even though pitches could take forever? So I've been kind of going back and forth on that one a little bit, on like, okay, should I just like tell the party, hey, like, I got 22 Sweetwater, it's pretty good, you got the level advantage there as well, you got the potential advantage, like the Twilight Mark is definitely a little bit better mathematically, but is it better enough to switch out of the 22 Sweetwater versus just giving it to party members?
So I think, so I'll give you 2 situations there as well. One would be sitting on 21 tattoo now and just keep that, and just send whatever Twilight Mark you get just to see if it goes.
Yeah, like if it's 22, great. If not, whatever.
So that allows you to go all or nothing and not feel like you have to like pause somewhere in between until it reaches that point. Plus, it'll also feel better because you haven't spent the money yet to get to 22 on the tattoo, and it'll actually be an upgrade, and for sure it'll be an upgrade compared to a 21 rather than it being really close to a 22. I think that's what I decided to do on my on my arc, because my arc had a 21 tattoo just like you, and then just kept tapping until I had 22 on a Twilight Mark, and then also at that point you can go out of rotation, you can give it to anyone else, that kind of thing. The 10 boss is quite nice, and then but on the DA I think I did another approach, because I want to say that I don't know if I already had a 21 tattoo, but I think I switched to a 21 mark first, and then got you know, because I was priority loot and everyone in the party just got 1 and got to 17. I think I had like 4 or 5 Twilight Marks, and then decided to tap 422 during the 5, 10, 15, and then hitting 22, and then getting rid of the rest. But
Gotcha.
Because I do think the set bonus width is worth, and plus it has flame advantage as well, right? Over the Sweetwater tattoo, so that helps quite a bit as well. You're only losing a little bit on the potential, but you're like, if your tattoo was like, you know, 36% strength or something, you're looking at a different argument. If it was already 22, you're looking at a different argument, because then it's like, you can probably skip Twilight Mark, because then, like you said, Berserked, and also eventually, you know, people go for a high set pitched. You tend to get the Dawn bonus from the pendant instead of from the face, right?
Right.
And then you go to the, you know, the Hilla pendant. Hilla/Saren pendant, because that's where anyone gets it. And then, you know, then replace the Sweetwater with that. But then again, then you have a really good piece that could become very strong drop or meso piece if that ever comes available. So
Okay.
those are like I would say those are like the two options. If you feel like you're like top priority for loot, no one else really needs it, and you can get your hands on a bunch of them, I'd probably say, like, see if you can, you know, hold on to some Twilight, and then during Shining or something, like, see if you can tap a few, and if you hit, then switch. If you don't hit, then you can always just go back to tattoo and tap the tattoo to 22, because you have those Dineros.
Yeah, because currently we've been duoing Hard Lucid and Hard Will. So like the Twilight Marks come, they're, you know, you have dry spells, but for the most part they're readily available. But I've gone back and forth a little bit on it. I usually just give them to him because he doesn't do Commercy, and I'm like, okay, well, I do Commercy all the time. But at the same time, now he's got so many that I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start just taking some Twilight Marks. And so I've been thinking about it. I'm like, okay, should I just leave the tattoo at 21, like you said, and just send the Twilight to 22?
Yep.
Or just be like, well, you know, the tattoo will probably go 22, so forget the Twilight Mark. I don't want to invest in another piece of gear.
I honestly think both of those options are probably fine. I don't think there's any like really bad one about that. Like, across the board, the Twilight Mark is, you know, because you could probably between now and Shining probably get your hands on like 4 or 5 Twilight Marks, which would mean like very reasonable chance of getting it to 22. But if you already have the Dineros and you think you kind of your duo partner, maybe you need a bit more. But if you're saying your duo partner has 2 or something, then that's a different situation than if he has like 8 of them right now, right?
Yeah, I think he has 6.
Yeah, I think you're entitled to some as well at that point. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of when we started running it, like, I was a little bit stronger than him, so I was like, okay, well, I'll give you the Twilight Marks, but I get the first book.
Okay.
So, and book seemed like a higher priority to me. Like, okay, like, start the pitch train. Like, it's an easy pitch item to move into. All you have to do is flame it. Super simple.
All you have to do is flame it after you get it. That's the
right. Well, yeah. When it eventually drops, if it drops. So, but you don't have to worry about booming it. It's Star Force and stuff. Like, if it drops, you'll eventually get to use it.
Yeah, for sure. Like, you have people like, I'm 3 set pitched, and I was like, oh, let me guess, it's the book, the badge, and the what's the other, and the emblem. And he's like, yep, because everything else blows up. Yeah,
everything else blows up. Exactly.
And you just can't move into it.
So
I don't think there's like a one right answer there, and I think they're close enough for you. So a lot of people kind of like get stressed out when options are really close because they want to know objectively, mathematically, which one is better. To me, it's very unstressing to know that they're very close, because it means I can take either one and I don't have to worry about it. But
right, most of my, when I'm looking at this kind of stuff, most of my decision making comes down to which one is going to feel better to do, as opposed to like which one is going to give me 0.5% more final damage.
Sure.
I'm definitely one of those people that fit in the camp of like, the game is not my job or my life, so I'm gonna play it, have some fun. As long as I'm constantly making progression, I'll be good. I don't have to squeeze, every little.
You're moving in the right direction,
thing. Right. Right. Exactly. Sure. So I'm like, that's why I kind of look at it. I'm like, okay, well, like, I'm already heavily invested in Sweetwater. I've been doing it for so long. Maybe I just stick with this, finish those 3 slots, and then if I get pitched to replace them, it works. But half the time it seems like the internet's like, Twilight Mark or bust, infinitely better, screw Commercy, Commercy's trash. And I'm just like,
well, you've also got an old account, right? Like, this character has been running it for so long. Like, if someone sits on a conglomerate of like, well, you've already boomed a bunch, but like 6,000 an hours or something, you wouldn't say like toss all of that by the wayside. Or if you are, then I think you're just detriment too. Because whatever you pick here, it's gonna eventually get replaced by a Berserk, right? So all in all, it kind of goes on the same pile.
Yeah, no, but the Commercy hate always cracks me up, especially on like the Reddit. It feels like Commercy's the like worst content known to man, and I'm over here like, if I get a pat mark on a boss mule, I'm still gonna transpose it and then start running Commercy.
Yeah, same. Yeah. I'm kind of like at the 6th, 7th boss mule now, where I'm like, I got a Dominator. I don't know if I want to go through that again, because I've got like 6 characters that went over 4,000 arrows, and then it's like gets a little much.
Dominators don't convince me to do Commercy on the boss mules. I just run Doms.
Sure.
But like I got a pat mark on the Wind Archer recently, and I'm like, oh man, I know Reddit or the internet will be like, just run the 20-star Black Beam mark, full send the pat mark. If it hits 22, great. If not, just use the Black Beam mark. And I'm over here like, yeah, but like
boss
the monocles,
yeah,
but the monocles basically like free backups. So and transposing is still like pretty good objectively, even without the flames. So
the way I just see it is that I don't mind Commercy that much either. But I really, really hate the weeklies for Absolab. So I just assume that people just feel about Commercy the same that I feel about the Absolab. So I completely get that if there is a way out, you take it. I understand. Because I have a whole bunch of characters that is as strong or stronger than some other people with Absolab stuff, but I have to overcompensate with doing other things because I just don't want to do those weeklies. They're not even that bad, but I just can't get myself. I mean, I could be exchanging like Lotus Hard Damien with 4 characters as well, but I just don't want to go through all of that trouble. I'll skip it.
Yeah, the next boss mule on the list is the Bowmaster. It's in at 210 currently. Mostly unique gear, just throwing the extra boss cubes at it because I don't have anything to use those cubes on except for that. And this is the first character I haven't just traded Lotus and Damien for to just have Absos right at 210 and just push them. And oddly enough, this is the first character that I could trade hard Lotus and Damien if I wanted to, because I'm strong enough to do that now. The rest that just traded normal for the droplets and did it that way. But I think the Bowmaster's the first one I'm just gonna not go right into Abso on and just be like, I don't think I need it. I think I can just roll with Tyrant Cape, get Tyrant Shoe and Glove if I get enough coins and want to go that route. If not, I can just stick with Nova and eventually just star them up and go to Arcane.
Yeah, Nova or
Master this time.
For gloves, I usually, because of how I funded up my characters for Project CRA, I'll have like Necro gloves that are decent. And then usually what I do is after I do my weeklies a lot, I'll open up all the tickets for Cygnus gloves and just see if any come out there with like a really good flame. I'm usually looking for a flame of like 90 plus. And then if I hit that, I transfer the Necro Glove into it. So it starts with Epic, and then I tier it up to Unique and see if I can get decent Sharp Eyes and some stats. And that way you can get an extra Matrix slot out of it as well. But of course, for the Bowmaster, the decent Sharp Eyes isn't that useful. So, 2-line stat or something. But I feel like that extra flame score does a lot of carrying. Because you won't be able to get the Tyrant Gloves at all, right? Are those... Did they change how you can get those when creatures basically crumbled? Because it used to be you had to do those invasions and exchange them for coins there, and I think that's still how you have to do them.
I haven't had a Tyrant piece other than a cape in so long.
You can buy the shoes. You can buy the shoes for sure, but you need like 8-9 runs or something. Which is not too bad. And they're really strong.
But I figure this will be the first boss mule I just skip Absol on and see how I like it. If I hate it, next boss mule I'll just trade Hard Lotus and Damien and get them. If it works well and I don't think it's a problem, then we'll just skip Absol.
Well, you're capitalizing on two big things, right? There you have a bigger legion and you have higher level link skills, and you just have better hands because you just know the boss is way better. So you just don't need as much damage to do the things. So you could cut the corners on the things that you dislike the most, and you can cut those corners and then see if it goes right. If you can do what you want to be able to do in the time that you're able to do it, then you're good. And if you can't, then you also know exactly where you can get that extra damage really easily. So
I do think this may be the last boss mule though, depending just from like a time perspective.
Well, you're
I
at 12
find,
characters, or well, you're at that would be the seventh one.
Yeah, I think it's the
Yeah,
seventh
if you
one.
count the book, yeah.
Yeah, because I do 6 through
Mm-hmm.
through Lotus and Damien. Every once in a while, I'll do the Kana through CRA, but I just don't enjoy playing that class, so I don't usually
Yep.
do it
I
anymore.
see.
But I have a lot of Sundays where I'm sitting here like, oh man, let's knock out the culvert. If I'm doing
Yeah.
culvert, I might as well go ahead and do the boss mules. And like the amount of Sundays where I'm trying to cram like 7 boss mules worth of bosses in, and I'm like, okay, I think I'm
Relatable.
capped.
Yeah.
I think I'm capped out on boss mules.
Yeah, I mean,
So
because at a certain point, you're not doing weeklies, you're doing dailies, right? You're doing a weekly
Right.
per day, so that's now a daily, and then you're scaling up.
right.
People go like
Or
12
I'll-
plus boss mule, they have to do 2 a day on average. So that's
Right. Or like the chunk of the day that I'm like, oh, I want to work. Like I haven't done Monster Park in like 4 days because I've been trying to squeeze in the boss mule runs, and I'm like, the 1.5 bill is probably worth doing this on, but
Mhm.
I also kind of need to do some Monster Park.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yesterday I managed to squeeze it in like last minute, but I'm way overkill on Monster Park, obviously, but I finally finished I got my 21st medal yesterday, so that's a lot of characters with
Yeah.
completely 7-day medals. A little bit
Yeah.
overkill, but it keeps you off the streets. I do want to mention one thing that I did notice. Are you basically taking away all the nodes from your account right now and putting them towards boss mules?
Yeah.
Okay. Because one of the skills is actually rather high priority, or things that will help you definitely with your scaling, is leveling up your weapon aura and your goddess blessing. Those will add a whole lot of damage to you as well. So if you're looking at like your BA now and seeing how much you need to improve, those will also do a lot of extra damage for you, because weapon aura is final damage and the uptime goes up with levels, and also has IED built in, so it will also help you with a little bit of a buffer once you do reroll your WSC and able to min-max that, and switch hopefully to boss fems. That one is, I think mathematically, if I remember correctly from Adele, actually the second skill that you would like to max right after the Infinity Blade. So before Legacy Restoration, before Ruin, before all of those, just because of where it sits. I don't know if it's a huge difference, but it is a difference. And then Goddess Blessing is a huge amount of extra attack during your burst, right?
Right.
Especially because you have the arcane
and,
weapon, it scales very well with that.
Yeah, I got to the point on the Adele for the longest time once I like maxed out the boost nodes, maxed out most of like the things that I thought were like big damage increases, and then obviously Holy Symbol. I was like, okay,
Yep.
I feel like the nodes could be better used on the bossy mules just because their nodes were so low, and nodes are still kind of tough to get. I think I've got 600 nodes currently sitting there. Now that I'm training more, they are flowing a little bit better, and then obviously Clover event helped a lot to basically get a boss mule where it needed to be node wise just from Clover event, which was good.
Okay.
But I have been throwing like event EXP node stones and things like that.
Okay, sure, yeah.
On the Adele, so like EXP node stones I'd always throw on the Adele. But I figure I don't have anything on the second page currently. But I'm probably at the point now where like Advanced Blessing can probably get crafted and go on there. Some other things that like I don't know why, but I never thought about. Oh, like that's something I could craft. Like kind of just looking through like the things I didn't even have the other day, and I'm like, oh, Advanced Blessing, I could put that in there.
It's definitely low priority. It's definitely like a bottom of page 1 at the best, so like early page 2 kind of thing. The thing you don't have at this point, I don't think, is the Urda's Will though. As you start doing more Tenebris and moving up to Chaos Tenebris, and so especially for Chaos Gloom and for Hard Dark now, just getting out of a stun here and there. If you're bursting and you get hit by like a blinding or a sealing, a stun or a blinding ball that's gonna fall on you, that can just either save your entire burst that might miss, or it might make it so that you can move out of the way, or just get hit by a bunch of balls without getting stunned and like chain stunned in them. It will save your life several times. And for Black Mage, it's almost mandatory because of the curse system there. So I would definitely, if you're going to be working back up right and start building min-maxing out your matrix for your main, definitely after 270, if you're trying to do Black Mage and all that stuff, definitely look at those and save them and level them. Same thing with leveling Blink gives you more weapon attack in there as well, so that scale's pretty nice. I would say when it comes to getting the decent skill. So if you get decent blessing or speed infusion or combat orders or sharp eyes, I would just disassemble those, because you don't really get much of anything from leveling except a little bit more uptime, but it already covers 100% if you have pet autopot, which I assume you do.
Yeah, I do, and I've been doing that over the last bit, but for the longest time, like if I got it and I already had it, I just threw it in there, and I was like, yeah, why not? Just throw it in there, level it up.
Yeah, I know. I did it for my arc. I think my arc is like level 23 of them as well. Like in hindsight, it's like so many.
And then
so
I
many
even
25, 21.
I think the last decent sharp eyes I got, I was like, should I just disassemble the level 16 one and just put the level 1 in there? And no, never mind.
That's also an option.
I thought about it though. I was like, I think technically it's the right move, but I'm not gonna worry with it. And then when it comes to nodes, and like special nodes, obviously there's some bosses, Black Mage in particular, people always crafting special nodes for. When you were training your arc and your DA, did you always craft special nodes for training for that? Because I never do, and I was like, I wonder how much it actually moves the needle.
I used to do the character building one, but it was mostly because of with totems, you had so many more monsters and so many more of them spawning faster on top of you that it would trigger pretty often. Oh, you don't have impenetrable skin either. Yeah, someone in chat noticed that. That's a good point.
No, I don't have it on the Adele.
Yeah, it's a. I mean, it is kind of a weird skill. And it's on a 4-minute now. But it does give you quite a bit of extra damage, and it does give you that knockdown resistance. Even though you have a lot of that in your kit already, but it's nice to have that on in the beginning of building up your burst, and then you get hit by some stuff. It actually improves your damage percentage for your burst. Yeah, also keep that one in mind. Yeah, that's a good point, Senkai. Thank you for noticing.
Yeah,
that.
I think I get in the bad habit of just like using Blink as super stance.
Yeah, I mean, that cooldown. I mean, the cooldown on impenetrable skin is pretty rough, but it's just another thing to throw into like a really big burst. So you'll every 4 minutes, you'll have one. Definitely once you have an Ozring, you want to make sure you throw everything in there. You now have one with Arachnid Reflection, one with impenetrable skin, just to have one slightly higher burst than everything else, or one with conversion overdrive until the changes come after Savior. So you still have one quote-unquote big burst and one smaller burst, kind of.
Right.
What were we talking about before that? Nodes. You just mentioned something else.
Oh, I don't even remember now.
Before the impenetrable skin. Chat, what were we talking about? We're talking about the nodes. We're talking about using it on other characters. Crafting stuff. Disassembling decents after the will skill. Yeah, we already talked about that.
We were talking about EXP node.
Yes. Training. Yeah, so you used to get hit way more, so it would trigger regularly, but especially with my DA with Frenzy, you just kill everything that's even remotely near you, so nothing gets to hit you anymore. And I feel like I just completely stopped worrying about it for training at this point. Because you're either flying through the map and killing everything, or you have summons killing everything, so monsters don't even get near you anymore. It's just the way that we train without totems is very different. So I stopped with that. For bossing, I still use it, like on my, but usually it's just if you have those extra slots. So that's typically for me only like at 270 or something. I'll start thinking about that. Maybe if you buy an extra slot, where you're like, okay, now, because I'd rather have like decent advanced blessing for the 20 attack across the board. There is definitely some min-maxing strats and all that with fatal strikes and all that, but you have to keep track and you have to count like how many seconds until the next time it's going to proc, and then time all your damage for that. That for me, that goes a little bit too far. That's not my thing. But if it is your thing, that's probably, class discords probably have like more in-depth stuff on that, and like when do you use that. If you want to optimize your culvert and your burst, like how do you go around like needing to build stacks and needing to do attacks for that, and it triggering a skill that you will need later. Like, how can you combine those two things?
Right, and I feel like the VMatrix on the Adele was one of those things. Like I said, I got it to a certain point, and I'm like, okay, I feel like most of the important stuff is maxed. Okay, cool, we can leave it alone for a while. It hasn't caused me any problems.
Yeah.
And then just recently, I'm like, oh, maybe there's some better ways to do it, but hadn't like dove into min-maxing it.
Yeah, so I would keep in mind so the blessing and the weapon R is definitely a lot of damage, and impenetrable skin and the hero's will for the long term, and then leveling up blink. I think leveling up blink also allows you to float a little bit longer. You have your own float, of course, but during the blink float, you can actually move around a little bit. So that's also nice.
Yeah, I was pretty late to the blink like train.
Oh, same.
You,
Yeah,
you
yeah. I had
watch
to.
like
Yeah,
everybody's using blink, and I'm like, damn, like should I be using this? Then you actually put it like you craft it and put it on. You're like, oh, this is fantastic.
yeah, yeah. Once you find a key for it, right? Like you have to move something on your keyboard around because
Yeah,
everything's already full. You're like, okay, where can this possibly go? And you're like, oh, okay, this. Yeah, it's a good
I
move.
know. And then I get on the hero, and I'm like, I have so many open keys.
Yeah, there's nothing on there. Yeah, I mean, yeah, between Lucid, but also like in the Snebbers bosses, when you get like, you're in darkness and stuff, you can just go up in the air, fly in the air with blink, and then you don't get stunned, falling down, stuff like that. So you have
Yep.
some
No,
knockdown. Yeah, Black
it's
Mage,
proven to be
it's very very
great
very
on Gloom.
useful for a lot of patterns. So yeah, it's good to get into the habit of using it. Same thing with the will skill. You'll start noticing more and more uses for it as you have it, and it just helps you get out of like annoying situations ahead of time, so you can just jump out of them, jump through them. You just pop them and then jump through, rather than maybe getting stunned, and if you're getting stunned, you're just fucked kind of situations.
Gotcha.
All
Because
right.
then you have two, right? You have like your class
Yes.
will,
Yes. Exactly.
and then
Yeah.
you have the extra one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think it's one of those things like until moving into like really like Gloom, I always kind of looked at it like I very rarely use,
Definitely.
Flora's will or Flor, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um,
That thing. Yeah.
and then you get to like Gloom, and I'm like, oh, I'm using this every boss fight. It would probably make sense to have an extra one.
Mm-hmm.
But like bosses before that, it just didn't seem like there was any reason to have it.
Yeah.
Needed it
Definitely.
so
Yeah.
infrequently.
Especially if you have skills that don't like deal all of the damage instantly, but it's kind of like over time, and then you can
Right.
still get blinded or sealed while the skill is going off, and then you'll just seeing all of those misses is just heartbreaking. So just seeing like, oh, I'm gonna get hit, tapping the skill preemptively, so you just never get CC'd in the first place, so all the damage can go through. Yeah, that's a big game. You can imagine right on the arc, like you have the endless. I don't even know what the fuck my skill's name is. Endless Agony or something? Yeah, Endless Agony is like a key down skill for a while, and then you just get hit mid skill, and then your beast misses everything, and it's just destroys.
Yeah, I don't think I could tell you a single arc skill. I did not enjoy playing arc.
Okay.
I leveled it, and it just sits there now.
It's just a red Adele, man. Just a no. Just kidding. I mean, there are definitely some similarities because they're both Flora. If you really look into like
Right.
how the skills work and everything, there's definitely some similarities, but they're definitely different. Yeah, one is a pirate, and definitely one is a war. Well, although, it kind of feels sometimes like Adele is kind of a mage because you don't really hold a weapon.
Right.
You're basically holding a loosened gauntlet, but then Ilium is a mage, but you're somehow a warrior. That always seemed a little weird to me, but lore or whatever.
If you do some mental gymnastics, it makes
Yeah,
sense.
you can. Yeah. Just why Angelic Buster is a pirate and not an archer or something, even though you're just basically just shooting different circular projectiles instead of sticky ones. But
Angelic Buster is an interesting class. I actually kind of like AB. I just don't play it.
I like how they just consistently make classes, and they're like, oh, they don't really fit anywhere. Let's just make it a pirate, I guess. So, in the beginning, it was like, oh, they're all on pirate ships, and now it's like the catch-all for it doesn't fit anywhere else, so let's just throw it in there. Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, I think that's all the questions I had. So
Yeah. I think we went over everything. I don't think there's any topics we skipped, and we're right at the hour and a half mark as well. So, yeah, if there's anything else you wanna say hi to your mom, you wanna give anyone a shout out, or or you wanna do any call for parties? Anything that you're looking for right now?
not at the moment. Again, I gotta
Okay.
find time with work to actually do it.
Sure thing.
But hopefully work will chill out in a little bit. That's you always
Yeah.
hope for. But yeah, I think that's everything.
Okay.
The only thing we talked about was Meso Drop, but I kind of just converted all of my Meso Drop gear to drop gear like a little while ago because I was like I wasn't training at
Oh,
all,
okay.
but I was still doing bosses, and like I've just slowly been like two-lining them. So I'm like, if I
Yeah,
get
so you have some split.
if I get
split
if I
stuff,
get
right?
5 that have drop in meso, great, I'll have 100%. I think I have 80% meso
Yeah.
currently.
Yeah, you're F1. I
But-
see. Yeah.
But I'm like, I'll eventually get a double drop, so I can have
Mhm.
200 because I have 180 now, and I'll eventually get, a 5th drop meso, and then
Yeah.
that'll be good. I did realize like later that both of my pendants are double, and that kind of stinks because of Pendant of Spirit. But
Yeah, yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah, I know. I have the same situation. You can't really choose that firmly where you get those lines. Sometimes you just have to kind of work around what you get. You know.
Yeah.
It's less than ideal, but you know, what are you gonna do? Make the best
What
out of
you
it.
gonna
Yeah.
do?
Maybe you
Exactly,
lose a line here
exactly.
and there, but then you just favoring the EXP over the lines, and if you're doing familiars, then you're favoring the drop over the EXP. You know, that's just.
And honestly, I've been looking for the double drop the whole time, and I just keep getting drop meso, which I'll take until I have the 5 lines of it. But double drop has eluded me to get the
It'll yeah.
200%.
It'll just hopefully show up. Like I got 2 double drops last event, and I was just looking for drop
I know.
plus
I was
damage,
just
and
a
then
touch angry. I did see those ones,
yeah.
and I was like, and I think they were on like red cubes, the red
Oh yeah,
cube
yeah,
equivalent.
yeah.
And I was like,
Oh,
man, I just spent like 7 bill on black cubes, but you know,
I've never. Yeah, I got a lot of doubles between all of my characters. I've never used black cubes for them. It's just they just always just kind of show up. But I think it's because I'm not actively chasing them because I don't need them. So the desire sensor in Nexon is not turned on, so they just give me them anyway, right? And then you, once they know you're using black cubes, it's like, he's chasing double meso or double drop, so let's lower the rates on that, you know?
I'm a blame Bean Brigade. I can't speak today. Luck.
It's like a tongue twister. Blame
Yeah,
Bean
I need
Brigade.
to. I
Damn,
need
that's
to.
a hard one.
I need to. I need to go back and watch the diatribal language you put up on YouTube yesterday.
Oh yeah.
Learn to speak correctly.
Yeah, that's yeah. Okay, you do that. Yeah, no, too many misusing TV shorts of just tapping everything to 22 without fails, right? That'll do something to your brain chemistry.
I know,
No, but yeah, you gotta.
every time I watch the stream as like a math major, I'm
Yeah.
like, man, Scardor talks about language way too much. He cares about the diction and the enunciation and all way more than I ever do.
Yeah, try to keep a balance between everything a little bit, right? We care about the numbers too, but you know, it's not the only discipline that should get some attention.
Yeah, but I also half the time feel like you probably understand the English language better than I do, and it's the only language I speak, and I'm like, oh man, maybe I should put some effort into this.
I think it would be similar if you would come as a foreigner into Belgium. Well, maybe not compared to me specifically, because I do have kind of like a neck for it. But if you were to come into a country and then learn that language, like in an official setting, for an extended period of time, and then talk to someone who's lived there like their whole life, you probably knew a bunch of stuff more about them than they did. Especially if they're, you know, kind of just like speaking dialect and just speaking more casually. There's probably a whole bunch of stuff that you could tell them, and then they're like, "Oh, I never thought of that," or like, "Oh, I never noticed that." Yeah.
Right, because you're actually actively learning it, and trying to figure out conjugation. Correct.
Yeah, and like academically versus just colloquially, a bunch of different
Yeah.
stuff is going to stand out for sure.
Right, and I'm over here like, yeah, I speak English. I've been speaking it my whole life. I'm good at English.
Right, you're communicating in it, right?
Apparently
Like,
not.
yeah. Nah, I mean, like you're communicating with other people in it, and as long as people around you can understand you, that's most important. It's more like just noticing certain things, you know. Yeah.
Right, for sure. Well, cool.
All right.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I wish you the best of luck, and hopefully the new job, everything falls into place and all that.
Same job, just different position.
Different position. I see. Well, yeah. Hopefully, you know, your wife lets you play video games every now and then you can make some gains.
Yeah, about once a week. When she's at work and I'm off.
All right. Make use of that time. Well, yeah. Good luck if you're doing Oz and all that. I hope you don't have to get to 15 million points for a good ring.
Now we spend the rest of the day on the boss mules and keeping guild rank.
Now we just pray for big Adele buffs in New Age update, right?
I guess I feel like Adele's pretty good, so if it just doesn't get nerfed, I'll be fine.
Yeah, that'll be a plus. All right.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, good luck with everything, and I'll see you around.
Bye.
All right, bye. Speaking of music, it's a Ludi music or something. It's always at the end of the playlist, so I tend to loop it a little bit if the session goes a little bit over the regular time, because the playlist is like an hour and 35 minutes, and the sessions are usually around an hour and a half. So yeah, with all that, if you guys are in a similar situation, hopefully this was somewhat helpful to see those priorities when you tap 22s. Definitely, I would advise to get to the situation that he's at right now, right? Getting pretty much everything at 21, and then the 22s we'll be fine. You know, if something doesn't go and you have to settle for a 17 or a 19 or something like that, you won't really feel it because you have a huge cushion of 21s. If you're trying to tap to 21s when everything else is only 17, or you're trying to tap 22s when everything else is only 17 or maybe a few 19s, you have the chance of making a huge upgrade, but you also have a really good chance of spending a whole lot of money and just ending right where you were. Make that money work for you, get those guaranteed upgrades first, and then go for the riskier ones, the also slightly more unnecessary ones, right? More so the organic ones that end up boiling, not boiling, floating to the top. That's what I wanted to say. So this session was helpful for you. I'm glad. And if you want one of these for yourself, check out !Mark Coaching over there on Twitch chat. Right there, top left. They're all going crazy right now. Look at those guys just spamming stuff. They're gonna spam in like a second. Don't worry. There's a stream delay. Or you check the description of the video. And if you like more of these videos, just check the playlist or check another video. Or if you want to be here live and maybe give live commentary and help if we forget some things, or if you want to lend your expertise because you happen to play the class that we were talking about, then join me over on Twitch. I stream every day over at twitch.tv/Scardor. So I will either see you there or I'll see you in the next video. Before you leave, remember, if you would like to win one of these sessions, make sure you leave a comment on the video that you would like to win with your Discord name, and you could be one of the 2 lucky people that I draw at the end of every month for a free session like this. So, what have you got to lose? Nothing. That's what I thought. Right, see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.